Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your host, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hi, welcome back to Hope After Addiction. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, I loved having Melissa on this podcast. It was so fun to watch her and her journey or listen to her journey and everything she had to say. We were talking about that a little bit before we started, and just how wise she is. Mm-hmm. And so if you haven't listened to the last couple of episodes, it is wonderful. So thank you, Melissa, for filling in and doing your thing. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back here in the seat and talking about some of this stuff. How have you been the last couple of weeks?
Been good.
Yeah?
Been good. Been crazy. You had a big birthday since the last time we've seen
Stop.
you.
Thanks.
Just a really big birthday.
Number 40, y'all.
That's right. So happy birthday.
You were waiting on that,
I
weren't you?
I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It was ish. I waited to the day before. I was like, I'm still in my 30s.
That's right.
My husband turns 40 6 months before me. So I just rub it in
6 months.
for those 6 months. And I said, I'm still in my 30s. And it was like the day before my birthday. And then I called my mom the day of my birthday. I was like, now, what time was I actually born? Because I'm actually still in my 30s.
Yep. How many hours do I have?
Yeah, she was like, you were born at 4:30, so in the afternoon, so you're good.
So funny.
Yeah, but it was good. I'm good. I'm taking it well. I'm in my 40s now.
I hear that it's like your new 30s anyways. Sweet years.
Yeah, I was in my 20s, but now I'm in my 30s.
That's right. It just keeps getting better.
No, I'm good. It was good. It was a sweet few celebrations since I had a surprise party, and I was very surprised. So it was really fun. We did an 80s theme because I was born in the 80s.
That's right.
So
It's so much fun. Y'all looked adorable.
oh yeah, it was fun. I was shocked, but we had a good time.
Good. I'm
So
glad.
yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, let's begin.
That's what friends are for.
Okay, so today, before I kind of get started, we have social media, we have email, and we have gotten the next couple of episodes based off of people, some of the questions that they've asked, some of the needs that they've asked. So if you ever have something that I really need you to talk about this is where I'm really struggling. We have Instagram, Facebook. We also have a Gmail account, hopeafteraddiction@gmail.com, but you can find us on all those social medias. Reach out to us. This is where we've gotten some of these topics. And today we're going to be talking about relapse.
Ooh, it's a heavy one.
Yeah, it really is. I'm scared of relapse. I don't know what to do if he relapses or she relapses. What do I do when I find out that they relapse? What do I do? Yeah. And we both have stories in our journeys, because to be quite honest, if you're just starting out in this journey, that is something, heaven forbid you have to walk through, but a lot of people do.
Yeah. And I think it's your greatest fear in the beginning.
Yeah, right. So we're going to talk a little bit about our stories and what we did in that. So why don't we start with you? Okay. You're in John's story. Okay. A little bit about what God taught you through that.
Through relapse. Okay. Yeah. I guess the thing for me is I always hoped that we would be that couple without a relapse story. Yeah. But we are. But I say that because God has worked incredibly through relapse. So our first experience was when John had gone through a secular program. He was out for about 90 days. I've talked a little bit about this on other episodes, but he ended up going to West Virginia for a funeral, and I knew that it was not a good idea, but I had to surrender this to God. So he went to West Virginia, and that Friday night I had a dream. It was a very vivid, real dream, and he was sitting around a campfire, and he had 3 Budweisers. And the next morning I woke up, and I'm a runner, and I just could not shake it. I was crying. Like, I just could not shake it. And he called. He's like, what is going on? I was like, it's just a trigger. I got to work through it. Yeah. So he comes home that Sunday night, and I'm walking up the stairs, and God said, you need to ask him if he needs to tell you something. And I was like, God, I can't, I'm not wanting to start a fight. He just got home. So I looked down the stairs and I said, do you want to tell me something about this weekend? Is there anything you need to tell me? And he looked at me and he said, I had 3 Budweisers around the campfire on Saturday night. So God had given me that vision of what was going to happen. My biggest regret was not sharing it with my husband, because if I would have shared it, would that have changed the trajectory of what happened? There's no way to know that. And clearly not. It happened the way that it was supposed to happen. But that was when I looked at him and I said, you've got 2 choices. You either get off the wagon and go down a slippery slope, or you dig in harder. John's choice was not to dig in harder. So we ended up going down 3-4 months of a really rocky slope. So that was our first relapse story, where he chose not to chase a deeper recovery.
Yeah.
Which ended up putting him back into S2L.
Okay.
So, and that was hard because, the question, as Katie asked, what do I do when they relapsed?
Right.
So I had given John some choices, and when things had really gotten out of control, it was that January he'd gone to Louisiana, and I had decided I was done. It was the one year we get snow in Savannah. I was locked in my house for 3 days to spend with God. And he got home and I had all of his boxes packed up, and I was like, I can't do this. And the one thing we hear a lot is, so you're giving me an ultimatum. It's not an ultimatum. It's a choice on my behalf that I will not live this way. You may choose to live this way, but I can't. I love you. I want this with you, but I can't. I can't do it. So that's actually what ended him up at S2L.
So just remind me and the viewers. So he went to S2L.
That was a secular program.
Oh, the secular program. Okay. And
so
then
he had not been to S2L
yet. This
yet.
was his first. Okay.
Yeah. So he didn't even have the correct tools to be able to fight.
Sure.
The way that he should have.
Which is a big deal for people listening. I mean, I know that people can find freedom.
Yeah.
In secular programs. I do know that. And people have found freedom.
Absolutely.
But there is a true difference when you're talking about freedom in Christ and Christ-centered recovery programs, what S2L is.
Yeah.
There's just a difference. It's they always talk about cleaning the inside of the cup and then the out will follow suit. So, So yeah, I mean, that's a good point to make.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it goes back to, because, we talk, addiction is a symptom of the heart. And so John had not dealt with any of his deep-seated past that took him into addiction. That was the reason that he was going to numb everything. So he still was dealing with the outside of the cup, but nothing had been done to the inside. So John was still running to those things to numb what he was feeling inside. So that was our first relapse story. So, second one?
Yeah, go ahead and just do it. And then, I'll share mine.
Okay, we'll go. So, this one's a little bit harder. This one is, he had gone through S2L. Everything, life was so good. Yeah. It was so good. So, this one blindsided me completely. There's just those things that you see, and we'll talk about it later, but where a relapse is coming. And John was not in God's will at that point. And now we know that he had stepped out of God's will. And I saw all the signs. I saw the rebelliousness. I saw the pride. I saw the hidden behaviors. And I kept questioning him. Like, are you sure? Are you sure? It was put back on me that I was the crazy one, that I was just losing my mind. I was making this stuff up. And so we were actually at his mom's house, and I knew it. I had searched that house upside down. I had searched that bathroom upside down. I'm like, I know it, but I needed solid proof to where I could just say, here it is. Like, yes, you are using again. And so that night, I was beside myself, shaking, couldn't eat for days again. And he went up to the bathroom, and John's mom was downstairs talking to one of our friends, and I just heard something in the spirit said that you better get upstairs. And I went upstairs, and the door was locked, and I knew something in the spirit just told me I knew. so I was knocking, I was screaming on the door. I told his mom, I was like, y'all need to get up here. Where's the key? I ended up busting the door down because I knew that I had to get in there. Mm. And they have a double door in the bathroom, and all I saw was his legs behind the door. Mm. And when I walked in there, he was lifeless. He was dead. This is our miracle story. But he was lifeless. He was gone. He was dead. He was gray. And I remember just beating him, like shaking him, beating him. And his mom was there, and she was just like, wake up, wake up. And all of a sudden, I just started praying. Yeah. And I was like, God, you have got to wake him up, like wake him up. And as soon as I said Jesus' name, his eyes popped open. Mm. And it brought him back to life. Mm. And the people that were there that night witnessed that and witnessed what a miracle that was. And I looked at him, and my question is, why? Why would you do this? Why? Like, life is so good. Why? And they can't answer that. He couldn't answer that. Next thing we know, we have about 6 ambulances at the house and police. And I said, tonight, the enemy wanted you gone. But here again, Jesus is not done with you. So I spent the next few days, weeks, questioning what I was going to do. Yeah. And I told him the next day, I said, I don't know if I want a divorce. I don't know right now, because I knew that I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't go through this again. I don't know. Praise Jesus is that's when John dug in even harder. And I love the imagery of a well, that when you want to go deeper in the water, you can't build the surface around the top of the well. You got to go deeper in that well to get to that water. And thank God, I mean, John called his mentors. He sat down with them. He called his bosses. He sat down with them. He dug into his back. He did everything with me, accountability even further. It was a life-changing experience. And it's one of those things now I look back and I think that relapse is what catapulted him further into his recovery. And it was life-changing. It was a life-changing night. I went through a lot of trauma, a lot of severe anxiety. I was scared of the dark for a long time. Never been scared of the dark. I was having, what I found out was trauma and PTSD from it, but God has worked really big ways through that. And so relapse was a part of our story. And I want you to know that you're not alone if you have been through that. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful that my husband chose to dig deeper in that well, mm-hmm. and to work himself out of what he had gone through that night and what we went through. Yeah. So, but it's also a testament to his mother. She saw a miracle that night. And she said, I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen the power of God worked out in that way. So God worked a pretty cool story in that.
Yeah, he did. I remember that. Mm-hmm.
It was hard. Katie was a big person for me then.
And it was hard. Lots of prayer for you all. When we love y'all so much.
Well, we wouldn't be here without you.
And we are so thankful that John dug in deeper. Yeah. And that you dug in. And I'm just so very proud of you. Yeah, well, I know that was a hard season. Relapse is a hard thing.
Oh, it's hard.
It's a scary thing. Mm-hmm. My story.
Yeah, I was like, let me hear about yours.
Moving on. Moving on.
Yes.
So we have a relapse story too. Ours was after his secular program. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. I know that John had one before and one after. Mm-hmm. The enemy working real hard on that second one. That's right. But the enemy is here to steal, kill, and destroy. Yes, he is. And I think Adam's relapse story catapulted him to find true, lasting, what's going to work. Yeah. So let me just back up. So Adam went to like a 12-step program for a while. Then he got out, and I was there. Yeah. I was
right beside
him every single, counseling session, every single 12-step meeting or AA meeting or NA meeting, if you will. And I mean, I was just there like, I'm Miss White, and here to support you. And I was there every time the doors were open that I could be. And so I was like, he is healed, of this addiction. And so I knew it. I just knew it. So I booked us a celebratory cabin of like, he's out of this program. I forget how long it was. I want to say it was 30 days.
He's got his 30-day chip.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, we are free from this. Let's move on from life and let's just go, to a cabin and celebrate. And so we did. And little did I know, I had no idea, but he was using the moment he got out of this program. But we were up at the cabin having a good old time. And I look back at that when I was like thinking about this, of this story. I'm just like, we're so naive. Like what? Like you didn't like think to check. I mean, I'm sure I questioned it. I'm sure I did. But you didn't think to like go through his stuff. Like I don't know. I think I just was naive or wanted to be blind to it. Yeah. I don't know. I had no idea. And we lived our life. And then slowly and surely, a lot of times when people relapse, unfortunately, they go heavier
and harder.
Yep. And so for Adam, that's what he did. So I started noticing those signs. I don't know if I was more aware to the signs to look for, or if his just drug addiction was just that much worse. But I just started noticing signs sooner. Yeah. And we did a intervention for him. We'll talk a little bit more about steps to take once that happens. But we just did an intervention for him and kind of called him out on it, and packed up his stuff. Packed up his stuff, and I moved actually back in with my family. And said, I don't know. I don't know what our life looks like from here on out. And I don't know if we're going to be together. And that relapse and those actions that I took catapulted him to do some research on what's going to find me lasting. He didn't know the word freedom at the time. Or, I mean, he did, but he didn't know what that looked like. But he just went back to his roots. Of what he was taught when he was younger. So he typed in Christian addiction recovery program. Because he goes, well, I haven't tried that. I just tried this ridiculous amount of money program, like 12-step program, and that didn't help me. So let me just try to figure out what will help me. And so he found S2L. And he went. And that was, if you go back and listen to my testimony, that's kind of where that kind of takes place, where he goes, he doesn't know if we're going to get together, but he works on himself and he finds freedom. He finds freedom in Christ. And he has not relapsed.
Praise God, which is amazing.
Which I am truly grateful for. We were talking a little bit about this before we started, but a lot of times it's the fear of relapse. And how did that transpire in my world? Because I probably for the first 2 or 3 years had that fear.
Yeah. And it's pretty all consuming in the beginning. I know it was for me. For the first, like, how do we walk through this? Is he using again? He's tired. Like Katie and I've talked about, is that a sign? Has he been using something? It's pretty all consuming in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, and it's different for everybody. It's kind of daunting to hear 2 or 3 years, but everybody's different though. You might just walk into that situation going, I truly trust him.
That's true.
I don't think he's ever going to relapse. Yeah. And I can honestly say I don't ever think about it anymore. I don't have that fear. Yeah. I have over the past 12 or so years asked him, do you ever think about it? Yeah. Do you ever think about, drugs or getting high? Yeah. And maybe that's my way of kind of asking, I don't know, but I don't have the fear. Praise God. And that is something it took time to get to. It didn't take overnight. Like I said, it took several years for me to get to that place where I'm like, your eyes look tired.
Yes.
And like just everything that he does.
Yeah.
But there's hope in what I'm saying too.
For sure.
There's hope to know that comes a time where you don't constantly have that fear of relapse.
It's so true. And even on there, and that's healthy conversation to say, hey, do you ever think about this? Because once those thoughts are brought to the light, it's done. It is done. The enemy has no power over it. And so John and I've had a lot of those conversations, just even road trips. He used to travel a lot. He would use on those travels to keep him awake. And so we talk about that stuff, and he's like, but I don't think about that on road trips anymore. Even, we just went to Costa Rica on vacation, and it was one of our last days, and vacation was always sticky. John always traveled with his time out of whatever vacation work revolved around, do I have enough substance to get me through? And it was about the last day, and he looked at me and he said, Chelsea, he said, this is the best vacation I've ever had. He said, do you realize the freedom that like I am wholly, completely here? Like I'm able to watch my son and like be here for you, and I don't have a thought in the world. So it comes with time. Whereas before we would have those conversations, I did kind of have a thought last night when we were driving late. Years ago, these thoughts would come, and I think it's healthy to talk about that and for them to be able to voice that, because once it's in the light, y'all, it's done. It's smashed.
That's right.
So they keep that in their hearts, like it's the enemy's able to use that more. So I think it's healthy to have that conversation.
Yeah. And they shouldn't get defensive over it either.
No. Red flag.
Yeah, it's a red flag. I mean, they shouldn't. I mean, something that Adam teaches the guys is you've done this to them. You've done this to them. They have every right to question you, especially in the beginning. I mean, there's zero reason that they should be like, why you want to drug test me? Like, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
Well,
duh.
Look what you have done.
Right.
Like to their trust and their confidence in you as their husband.
All of it. And that's what John tells his guys too. Like our loved ones have been so patient with us. Now it's our turn to be patient with them.
Yeah.
Because we've walked through it with them, and now they have to walk through it with us when it comes to regaining that trust.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. You said you had something that you wanted to share.
Well, one of the things that I remember, a situation we were going home was always very tough for me because that was John's setting.
Yeah.
His friends were there, his using buddies, everything was there. So we were both headed home, and I was just so uneasy. This was more in the beginning. And the night before we left, I was just in my quiet time with God, and he said, there's still things that I want to show John there. I was like, okay, God, I'm surrendering this to you. Like, I just have to. So that Saturday night, John came up to the bedroom, and he was like, Chelsea, oh my goodness, God has shown me like so much just in the last day. And I was like, okay, God. So like God is still showing them stuff. It may not be to the level of relapse, but God's still tweaking and working on their heart to show them what could potentially take them back to relapse. So just to be still in those moments when you're scared to death, you're questioning. Facts are not always feelings. Feelings are not always facts. So when you're scared to death, really search your heart. And I've said it before, God, is this discernment or is this a fear? Is this a fear of the enemy or is this discernment? And God will reveal that to you. Like he will show you that. The power of prayer. We have wives, moms, you have husbands, y'all have a powerful prayer for your person. And so one of the things I always pray is God repulse John of anything of his past, of anything that may come in the way, repulse him from that and bring to light what's been done in darkness. And there are so many times in this Bible that God talks about bringing to light what's done in darkness.
Love that.
Yeah. So,
so when you're loved, see, this is, Satan is here to steal, kill, and destroy, right? That is his job. And he will do whatever he can to break your loved one down when it comes to addiction, relapse, whatever it is. So some encouragement for you and for your loved one during this season, whether you're scared that they might relapse or they're just getting out of, they're just getting out of rehab and you're scared that they might relapse or they have relapsed. There's some things that you and them can do in your life to kind of help combat the enemy. And when we're talking about relapse, one is going back to the people that they hung out with before.
Yeah.
They just don't need to do it.
Yep. Period.
They need to remove themselves. Adam moved cities.
We did too.
So y'all did too. There's just like, not that he would think about going back to it, but you're just putting yourself in that situation of potentially relapsing with those same people. I mean, so it makes sense, right?
It does. Amelia said it the way to John one time. It said, do you want to jump back in the water with sharks?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a simple question, you know?
That's such a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you, Amelia.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's the people you hang out with, staying in the Word.
Yes.
God has given us something that you were just talking about. I mean, just like being able to like really dig in deep and just fighting the enemy with what he hates the most.
Yeah. The living Word.
Yeah. So being in the Word, having accountability, having accountability in your circle that you can be the most vulnerable with.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really struggling today. Having that conversation with them late at night when they first get out of rehab, they have these like thoughts that Satan's getting after them, having somebody they can call and be like, man, I'm really struggling. I mean, that helps these guys out so much.
It does. And husbands and wives, we're not always meant to be that.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn that because I wanted to be that for John. And God has not put us in the position. We do have a level of accountability, but God has also not placed us to carry that burden with them.
Right.
And so having that person that they can run to that said, hey, I'm having a thought right now, or hey, I'm struggling with this. It is imperative to have that mentorship in their life.
And to go a step further, I would encourage you not to be that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So not that you're not just meant to be, but I would encourage you not to be, and encourage them to find accountability partners.
I love that you said that, because we're healing. We're on our own journey. And so God puts people in our lives. Like Katie was mine that I could run to and say, Katie, I'm struggling with John going home, or I'm struggling with this. Same as John has his person that he can run to and say, hey, I'm struggling right now with this.
You each need to have your own accountability.
Yeah, that's so good.
And then, and you need to find a church. I know sometimes the guys at S2L, it's such a close-knit group of guys. And they have their own like Thursday night, like worship and stuff. But something that they really encourage the guys is to find a church family too, and get plugged in.
Yeah, that's the fellowship.
It's the fellowship that you need. And so those are a few, I don't know if you have any more, but those are a few, ideas that can really help deter the enemy from getting into the mind of your loved ones and getting into the mind of you when it comes to relapse.
Yeah, that's so good. And I just remember when John's overdose, when we started digging back in, to that subject, but Mike, our counselor, said, you're not starting over, you're just starting again.
Okay.
Which gave us hope. That's when we had decided, like, hey, we're going to do this. Yeah. And then we had another good friend that was there in that moment and said, listen, your story's not done because of this. You're not a failure because of this. And don't doubt that God doesn't still want to use your story of healing and of freedom. And I will never forget that, because at that moment I was like, it's all over. It's all done. That's not true. And so if you're loved one, and I've always said it, John never quit trying. And as long as John was trying, I was going to try too. And so that's what got us to where we are today, because we both fought with everything that we had,
It's those second, third, maybe fourth chances. Could you imagine if he had just stopped trying?
No. Like
where you would be, and like how much your story, Chelsea, and his story and your story together, how much it's helped other people. And if Adam had decided not to Google and not to try again and just want to live in that sin and say, nope, I've relapsed, I guess I'm just not meant to be free.
Right. I'm just a failure.
He would have never even come to S2L.
Yeah. And it's crazy because it makes me emotional, because the enemy wants us.
He hates it.
His biggest plea in life is to kill the family.
Yeah.
And it's like our pastor said Sunday, like, don't take a spiritual battle in that realm and bring it to this realm. Yeah. Like, fight it in this, fight that spiritual battle to know, like, enemy, you can't have my family and you can't have my husband. And we're going to do this because God's going to get us through. But it takes two trying.
Yeah, it does.
You got to have that.
Yeah, it does.
So.
Wow.
So good.
And that's on Relapse.
And that's Relapse.
No, we thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
On this difficult subject. It really is, but we hope you found some hope. We hope you found some just guides on how to deal with that with your loved one. But we thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait for you to join us next week. Thank you.
Thanks.